You said we will conquer the world together, but... Okay, I will do anything for you to be well again. Anything.
Ego and Chukwuma were the kind of couple people talked about in quiet admiration, and sometimes in hidden envy. They lived in a modest 2-bedroom apartment in a busy part of the city, but inside those walls was a warmth that many wealthier homes lacked. Every morning, neighbors would hear laughter coming from their kitchen. Ego always woke up early, preparing breakfast while softly singing. Chukwuma, no matter how tired he was from work, would join her, teasing her about her singing voice. "You go scare the neighbors one day," he would joke, smiling as he wrapped his arms around her from behind. Their love was simple, but it was deep. Chukwuma worked as a mechanic, known for his honesty and skill. Ego worked as a secretary in a company. They were not rich, but they were content. They planned their future carefully, saving little by little, dreaming of owning their own house someday, and raising children in a home filled with love. Whenever they attended gatherings, weddings, birthdays, or family meetings, people couldn't help but notice them. "See the way Chukwuma looks at his wife," one woman whispered at a party. "It's like he just married her yesterday," another replied. But not everyone admired them with a clean heart. Some friends smiled with them, but gossiped behind their backs. But Ego remained unaware of all this. She treated everyone with kindness, always ready to help whenever she could. One evening, after a long day, Chukwuma returned home looking unusually tired. Ego noticed immediately. "You are not okay," she said, placing her hand on his forehead. "I'm fine," he replied weakly. "Just small stress." But Ego knew her husband too well. That night, as they lay in bed, Chukwuma tossed and turned. Sweat covered his body and his breathing became heavy. "Chukwuma," Ego called, shaking him. "What is it?" "My chest. It hurts," he whispered. Fear gripped her heart. Without wasting time, she rushed him to the nearest hospital. That was the beginning of everything changing. At the hospital, everything moved too fast. Doctors rushed Chukwuma into the emergency room, while Ego stood outside, her hands trembling. The bright hospital lights made everything feel cold and unreal. Minutes turned into hours. Ego paced back and forth, whispering prayers under her breath. "God, please, not him, not my husband." Finally, a doctor came out. "Are you his wife?" he asked. "Yes," Ego replied quickly. "What is wrong with him?" The doctor's face was serious. "Your husband has a severe heart condition. He needs surgery urgently." Ego felt her legs weaken. "Surgery?" she repeated. "But he has never been sick like this before." "It may have been developing silently," the doctor explained. "But right now, his condition is critical. Without surgery, his chances of survival are very low." Ego swallowed hard. "How much? How much will it cost?" she asked, her voice shaking. The doctor hesitated for a moment before answering. "It will cost several millions of naira." The words hit her like a heavy blow. "Millions?" she whispered. "Yes, and the surgery must be done as soon as possible." Ego's mind went blank. Where would they get such money? They barely had savings, just enough for small emergencies, not something this big. She walked into Chukwuma's hospital room later that evening. He was awake, weak but conscious. "Ego," he called softly. She forced a smile and sat beside him. "You'll be fine," she said, holding his hand tightly. "Everything will be okay." Chukwuma looked into her eyes, searching for something deeper. "I trust you," he said. Those words pierced her heart. Ego held his hand tightly, fighting back tears. "I won't fail you." The next morning, Ego began her search for help. She started with family. Her uncle was the first person she visited. He listened quietly as she explained everything. He sighed. "This is serious." "Yes, uncle," Ego said, her eyes filled with tears. "I need help, please." Her uncle leaned back in his chair. "You know things are hard these days," he began. I just invested money in a new business. I don't have such amount now. Ego nodded slowly, even though her heart was breaking. Thank you, sir, she said, standing up. Next, she visited her cousin. I wish I could help, but I just paid my children's school fees. You know how it is. Then her friend. My sister, I'm even owing people myself, the friend said quickly. Another friend said, let me see what I can do, but Ego could tell it was just empty talk. One by one, doors closed in her face. The same people who once praised her marriage now avoided her calls. Some didn't even pick up. By evening, Ego was exhausted. She sat alone by the roadside, tears streaming down her face. God, what do I do? She cried quietly. Time was running out, and Chukwuma's life was slipping away. The following days were even harder. Ego refused to give up. She woke up early every morning and moved from place to place, searching for help like someone chasing a disappearing shadow. She went to distant relatives she barely spoke to. She knelt down in front of some, begging, please, I will pay back. Just help me save my husband. Some looked uncomfortable. Some avoided her eyes. Some gave small amounts that could not even make a difference. Others gave nothing at all. Her maternal uncle said, why didn't you people save money? You think life is a joke? His words cut deep into her heart. Ego also tried to borrow money from lenders. At one office, a man looked at her with suspicion. You want to borrow 5 million? He asked. Yes, sir. Do you have collateral? Ego shook her head. No house, no land, no valuable property? He continued. No, sir. The man laughed lightly. Then how do you expect us to trust you? Ego left in silence. At another place, the conditions were impossible. The interest is 40%, the woman explained, and you must repay in a short time. Ego knew she could never meet those terms. It felt like the world was closing in on her. Meanwhile, Chukwuma's condition was getting worse. At the hospital, machines surrounded him. His once strong body looked weak and fragile. One evening, a doctor pulled Ego aside. You need to act fast, he said. His condition is deteriorating. Ego's heart pounded. How much time do we have? She asked. Not much, the doctor replied. That night, Ego sat beside her husband, watching him sleep. She held his hand gently. I won't lose you, I promise. But inside, she felt helpless. Where would the miracle come from? Suddenly, a thought came to her. Her boss. He was a wealthy man known for his influence and connections. Ego had never been close to him, but she knew he had money. Maybe, just maybe, he could help. The next morning, Ego went to work with a heavy heart. Her boss was in his office. She stood outside the door for a moment, gathering courage. Then she knocked. Come in, his voice said. Ego entered slowly. Good morning, sir, she greeted. He looked up at her. Yes, Ego, what is it? Ego took a deep breath. Sir, I need your help. Her voice trembled as she explained everything, her husband's illness, the surgery, the cost, and how she had tried everything without success. Her boss listened quietly, his expression unreadable. When he finished, silence filled the room. Then he leaned back in his chair. That's a lot of money, he said slowly. Yes, sir, Ego replied, but I'm begging you, please help me. I will do anything to pay you back. Her boss looked at her carefully. Anything? He repeated. Ego didn't fully understand the weight of that word yet, but she nodded. Yes, sir. Anything. Her boss smiled slightly. All right, he said. Come to my house this evening. We will discuss it better there. Ego felt a small spark of hope. Thank you, sir, she said quickly. As she left the office, her heart beat fast, not from fear, but from hope. For the first time in days, she believed there might be a way out. She didn't know that her biggest test was just beginning. Ego spent the entire day at work in a daze. Her mind kept replaying her boss's words over and over again. Come to my house this evening. She didn't fully understand why he insisted on meeting at his house instead of the office, but she pushed the thought aside. Right now, nothing mattered more than saving Chukwuma's life. By the time she closed from work, her heart was beating fast with a mixture of hope and anxiety. She stopped briefly at the hospital before heading to her boss's house. Chukwuma looked weaker than before. His breathing was slow and his voice was faint. "Ego," he called softly. "I'm here," she said, forcing a smile as she sat beside him. "You look tired," he whispered. "I'm fine," she replied quickly. "Everything will be okay." Chukwuma looked into her eyes, searching for something deeper. "I trust you," he said. Those words pierced her heart. Ego held his hand tightly, fighting back tears. "I won't fail you." After leaving the hospital, she made her way to her boss's house. The building was large and beautiful, standing tall in a quiet neighborhood. It was the kind of house Ego had only seen in movies.
She paused at the gate, taking a deep breath before pressing the bell. A security guard opened the gate and directed her inside. As she walked into the compound, she noticed how quiet it was. No children playing, no voices, no signs of a family. Her heart began to beat faster. She knocked on the door. Moments later, her boss opened it. "Ah, Eko," he said with a smile. "You're welcome." "Good evening, sir," she greeted politely. "Come in," he said, stepping aside. Ego entered the house slowly, her eyes scanning the surroundings. Everything was neat, expensive, and perfectly arranged, but there was something unsettling about the silence. "Please, sit," he said, pointing to a couch. Ego sat down carefully. "Sir, your family?" she asked softly, hoping to ease her growing unease. "They are not around," he replied casually. Something inside her tightened. "Oh, okay," she said quietly. Her boss walked to a table and picked up a checkbook. "You said the surgery cost 5 million, right?" he asked. "Yes, sir," Ego replied quickly. "That's what the doctor said." Without another word, he began to write. Ego watched him, her heart pounding. Could this really be happening? Was help finally here? He tore out the check and walked toward her. "This is the exact amount you need," he said, handing it to her. Ego's hands trembled as she collected it. "Thank you, sir. Thank you so much," she said, her voice breaking with relief. Tears filled her eyes. She was about to stand up when his voice stopped her. "Wait." Ego froze. "Yes, sir?" she asked slowly. He sat down opposite her, his expression now serious. "You know, nothing comes for free," he said calmly. Ego's heart skipped. I will pay you back, sir," she said quickly. "I promise." He shook his head slightly. "That's not what I mean." Silence filled the room. Ego felt a chill run down her spine. Her boss leaned forward slightly. "I can give you this money," he said slowly. "But you have to give me something in return." Ego's grip tightened on the check. What do you mean, sir?" she asked, though deep down she already feared the answer. His eyes darkened. "Spend the night with me." The words landed like a thunderbolt. Ego felt her entire body go cold. "Sir?" she whispered, her voice shaking. "You heard me," he said calmly. "Just one night, then the money is yours." Ego stood up immediately, her face filled with shock and anger. "No," she said firmly. "I can't do that." Her boss remained calm. "Think about it," he said. "Your husband's life depends on it." Ego shook her head, tears already streaming down her face. "I would rather lose everything than do that." Without waiting for another word, she dropped the check on the table and rushed out of the house. Her heart was racing as she ran out of the compound. Once outside, she broke down completely. How could he? She cried. She felt disgusted, hurt, and confused. As she walked aimlessly along the road, her phone suddenly rang. Her heart pounded as she answered. Hello? Are you Mrs. Chukwuma? A voice from the hospital asked. Yes, I am, she replied quickly. You need to come immediately. Your husband's condition is getting worse. Fear gripped her. I'm coming, she said, ending the call. She began to run. When she got to the hospital, doctors were already attending to Chukwuma. One of them pulled her aside. We don't have much time, he said seriously. If the surgery is not done within the next 24 hours, we may lose him. Ego felt like the ground had been pulled from under her feet. No, she whispered. Her mind went blank. 24 hours, that was all. She walked slowly to where Chukwuma lay unconscious. Tears streamed down her face. I can't lose you, she whispered. Suddenly, her boss's words echoed in her mind. Your husband's life depends on it. Ego closed her eyes tightly. Her heart battled within her. Her dignity or her husband's life? She cried silently for a long time. Then slowly, she stood up. Her decision was made. With trembling steps, Ego walked out of the hospital and turned back. That night changed everything. Ego returned to her boss's house, her heart heavy and her spirit broken. When he opened the door and saw her, a knowing smile appeared on his face. I knew you would come back, he said. Ego said nothing. She walked in slowly, her eyes empty. Her boss handed her the check again. This is yours, he said. Ego collected it without a word. What followed was a moment she wished she could erase from her life forever. She felt disconnected from herself, like she was watching everything happen from a distance. Her heart cried, but her body remained still. All she could think about was Chukwuma. This is for him. This is for his life. When it was over, Ego picked up the check and walked out without saying a word. She felt numb. The next morning, she rushed to the hospital and paid for the surgery immediately. Doctors began the procedure without delay. Hours passed. Ego sat outside the operating room, her hands clasped tightly as she prayed. God, please let him live, please. Finally, a doctor came out. The surgery was successful, he said. Ego burst into tears. Thank you, Jesus, she cried. Relief washed over her. Chukwuma was alive. Days later, he began to recover. His strength slowly returned and his smile came back. Ego, he said one afternoon, holding her hand, thank you for standing by me. Ego forced a smile. Yes, she said softly. But inside, she was drowning. Every time she looked at him, guilt stabbed her heart. She couldn't tell him the truth. She carried the secret alone. Weeks passed, and life began to return to normal, or so she thought. One evening, her phone buzzed. It was a message from her boss. I miss you. Come over tonight. Ego's heart skipped. Her hand trembled. She quickly typed a reply. No, sir. Please don't contact me again. She thought that was the end, but she was wrong. Another message came. Don't forget, I can tell your husband everything. Fear gripped her again. Ego felt trapped. She tried to ignore him, but the messages kept coming. Calls, threats, pressure. Her boss refused to let her go. Come back to me, he said during one call, or your husband will know the truth. Ego's chest tightened. No, she said firmly, I won't do it again. You don't have a choice, he replied coldly. But this time, Ego stood her ground. I would rather face the consequences, she said. She ended the call, her hands shaking. For days, she lived in fear. Every phone notification made her heart race. Every moment felt like the truth was about to explode. She tried to act normal around Chukwuma, but it wasn't easy. He noticed the change. You've been quiet lately, he said one evening. I'm just tired, Ego replied. Ego tried her best to act normal, but fear followed her everywhere like a shadow. Each time her phone vibrated, her heart would skip. Each time Chukwuma looked at her for too long, she would quickly look away. Guilt had become her constant companion. One evening, he sat quietly in the living room, watching Ego as she moved around the kitchen. She wasn't singing anymore. That was the first thing he had noticed. Ego used to sing all the time, while cooking, cleaning, even while bathing. But now, the house was always quiet. Ego, he called. Yes, she responded, forcing a smile as she walked in. Are you okay? He asked, his eyes fixed on her. I'm fine, she replied quickly. You don't seem fine, he said. Ego laughed nervously. It's just stress. Work has been a lot. Chukwuma nodded slowly, but he wasn't convinced. That night, as they lay in bed, he turned to her. Thank you for not giving up on me, he said softly. Ego's heart tightened. I couldn't lose you, she replied, her voice almost breaking. Chukwuma smiled faintly. I don't know how you did it, getting that kind of money, but I'm grateful. Ego swallowed hard. Don't worry about it. But Chukwuma was already worrying. Something didn't feel right. A few days later, everything changed. It was a quiet afternoon. Ego had gone to the market, leaving her phone on the table. She had rushed out earlier, distracted and uneasy. Chukwuma was alone in the house. He had just finished eating when he heard a notification sound. Ping! He glanced at the table. Ego's phone lit up. At first, he ignored it, but the message notification appeared again and again. And something about the persistence made him uneasy. He hesitated. Chukwuma was not the kind of man who went through his wife's phone. He trusted Ego completely. There had never been a reason to doubt her. But today, something felt different. Slowly, he stood up and walked toward the table. The phone screen lit up again. A message preview appeared. You think you can ignore me after everything we did? Chukwuma frowned. His heart began to beat faster. He picked up the phone. Another message came in immediately. Don't forget, I paid for your husband's surgery. You owe me. Chukwuma froze. His fingers trembled as he unlocked the phone. What he saw next shattered his world. Message after message. From the same person. Her boss. Words filled with threats, control, and something darker. Come over tonight. You can't run from me. I will tell him everything. Remember that night. Chukwuma's chest tightened. His eyes moved quickly, scanning through the conversation. Then he saw it. The message that broke him completely. You chose to sleep with me to save your husband. Don't pretend you are innocent now. The phone slipped slightly in his hand. His breathing became heavy. No, he said. It felt like a bad dream, but it wasn't. Everything suddenly began to make sense. The money, the silence, the guilt in her eyes. Chukwuma staggered backwards and sat down heavily. His heart ached, not just from illness this time, but from something deeper. Betrayal, pain, confusion. He didn't know what to feel. Anger? Yes. Hurt? More than anything. But beneath it all, there was something else. Understanding. And that made it even harder. Ego returned home later that evening, unaware that her world had already collapsed.
Home.
As she stepped into the house, she noticed something immediately. The silence. It was different this time. Heavy, unsettling. "Ego?" she called. No response. Her heart began to beat faster. She dropped her bag slowly and walked into the living room. He was sitting there, still, quiet, holding her phone. Ego froze. Everything inside her went cold. "Chukuma," she whispered. He slowly looked up at her. His eyes were filled with something she had never seen before. Pain. Deep, raw pain. "How long?" he asked quietly. Ego's legs weakened. "What do you mean?" she stammered. "Don't lie to me," he said, his voice rising slightly. "Then explain it." Ego flinched. Her heart pounded as tears streamed down her face. "I didn't want to tell you," she cried. Chukuma let out a bitter laugh. "Of course you didn't." "It was just once," Ego said quickly. "Just once." The words hung in the air. Chukuma's face hardened. "Once?" he repeated. Ego nodded uncontrollably. "Yes, it was just that night." She fell to her knees. "I did it for you," she cried. "I had no choice." Chukuma turned away from her, running his hand through his hair. "You could have told me," he said quietly. "And say what?" Ego cried. "That I should watch you die when I could do something to save you?" Silence filled the room. "I chose you," she said softly. "I chose your life over everything, even myself." Chukuma closed his eyes. Her words cut deep because he knew she was telling the truth. She had sacrificed herself to save him. But the pain in his chest refused to go away. "You betrayed me," he said finally. Ego shook her head desperately. "I did it to save you. And in doing so, you destroyed what we had." Ego crawled closer to him. "Please, don't say that," she begged. "I did it because I loved you." Chukuma looked at her, tears forming in his own eyes. "I loved you too," he said. Those words broke her completely. "I still love you," she cried. Chukuma shook his head slowly. "I don't know what I feel anymore." The room felt suffocating. The love that once filled it had been replaced by something heavy and painful. "I wake up every day and see you. And now I will always remember this." Ego covered her face, sobbing. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." But sorry could not undo what had been done.
Chukuma walked away from her and stood by the window, staring into the distance. Minutes passed. Then he spoke again. "You should leave." Ego looked up sharply. "What?" she whispered. "I can't do this," he said. "Chukuma, please." "Leave," he repeated, his voice firm. Ego's heart shattered. "You're sending me away?" she asked, her voice trembling. He didn't respond immediately, but his silence was enough. Tears streamed endlessly down her face. "I did everything for you," she whispered. "And I didn't ask you to," he replied. Those words cut deeper than anything else. Slowly, Ego stood up. Her legs felt heavy. Her chest felt empty. She looked around the house, the home they had built together, filled with memories, laughter, and love. And now it was over. She picked up her bag with trembling hands. At the door, she paused. "Is this really the end?" she asked softly. Chukuma didn't turn around. "Yes, I will send the divorce papers." Ego closed her eyes. A single tear rolled down her cheek. Then she opened the door and stepped out. The door closed behind her with a quiet sound that felt louder than anything. Thank you for watching. Kindly share your thought in the comment section as we interact. Like this video please, and kindly share out this video to your loved ones. Subscribe to this channel if you have not done so already. Until I come your way with another story, for now from me, it is bye.